I've already explained to you in this video that's here on the channel about the real hidden reason behind that whole issue with Israel. I explained in this video here that there is a portal there in Jerusalem. But Carol, is this portal that exists in Jerusalem the only one in the universe? Of course not, right? The portal that exists in Jerusalem is there thanks to an astronomical alignment. But there are others, of course. And in today's video, I'm going to explain to you what truly exists behind these portals and, most importantly, where these portals are. Well, now that I've given you the message, pay attention to this story about the portals. Well, in 2012, a researcher from National Aeronautics and Space Administration and the University of Iowa named Jack Scudder observed a very mysterious phenomenon. He was analyzing the Earth's magnetic field, and he noticed that the Earth's magnetic field connects with the Sun's magnetic field through a portal to the unknown. And when this happens, this portal opens between these two magnetic fields. Jack Scudder called this phenomenon X points. And intrigued by Jack Scudder's discovery, National Aeronautics and Space Administration sent a probe to the exact point where these two magnetic fields connect. And guess what? This probe discovered that this portal really had the power to transport things directly to the Sun's atmosphere. I'm talking about 149 million kilometers of distance that can be crossed quickly in a matter of seconds. In other words, I'm talking about the portal. The portal is real, and according to National Aeronautics and Space Administration, it opens every 8 minutes. These portals, similar to the portal that exists on the Sun, exist throughout the entire universe, but they are unstable and difficult to predict. In ancient stories from the planet's distant past, there are different cases of physical locations on planet Earth where an ordinary human, under certain circumstances of time and even cosmological circumstances, was able to cross from this world to other worlds. In other words, in the past cultures of planet Earth, there is physical evidence of the existence of these portals. Just like in the story I told you about the Temple Mount. Do you remember that it's a portal that connects our world to the world of the abyss and to the realms of heaven? Well, exactly. These portals, they're called Stargate portals. And nowadays we have this idea that portals like these are things from science fiction movies. But our ancestors, in other words, the civilizations of the past, didn't think that way. For ancient civilizations that inhabited planet Earth, these physical places were accessed and used normally. And there are specialists like Greg Braden, for example, who attest that these portals are controlled by the military and that they usually close off the area around these portals to control what goes in and out of there. Which makes even more sense with the story I told you about Jerusalem last week. In fact, there's a science fiction movie that shows this hidden truth to us normal human beings. Have you ever watched The Mist by Stephen King? That's right, it's a fictional story that talks about the opening of these portals and especially about the control the army has over these portals. If you haven't watched it, here's a tip for you. And it's exactly within this topic that these same experts attest that in the not-so-distant past, we had a huge conflict in Iraq. Who remembers? Oh, and Jerry Zeitlin, who worked for the United States Secret Service, gave a very interesting statement about this before he passed away. Well, search his name on Google and read what he said. This guy and his wife, they worked for the United States Secret Service, and later he worked for Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. And he even had a very important job in collaboration with National Aeronautics and Space Administration. Everything we know today about the Sumerians was found in the library of Ashurbanipal. And in this place, there are metal tablets containing very curious illustrations. And these illustrations tell the story of how this ancient civilization used a kind of gateway to move between different dimensional realities. And they did this using a small device that they carried in their hand, in the same way, for example, that there is a perfect and very well developed and encoded mathematics in the pyramids of Egypt. In the case of the pyramids, this mathematics reveals to us that these portals were created by the gods. These many parallel dimensions are separated from our reality here by a thin membrane that is electromagnetic. All we need to do is tune into that frequency. Still in Egypt, in Saqqara, to be more specific, there are several artifacts that were found there that cannot be explained. These are artifacts made from materials that do not come from planet Earth. And Tutankhamun's own dagger also fits into this list of strange artifacts. Well, about Tutankhamun's dagger and these artifacts, we have a dedicated video here on the channel. I recommend that you watch it in case you haven't seen it yet. In other words, where did the materials to make these artifacts come from? On Earth, for example, there are different places where the laws of physics are a little bit different, where they behave in a strange way. Jerusalem is one of those places, but there are many others. If you always watch the videos here on the channel, you must have seen, for example, this video from Norway. Seriously, guys, what was that experience? In Turkey, for example, there's also Göbekli Tepe. Well, all of this is very interesting, especially if we relate it to everything that's happening on Earth right now. In the California desert, there are also these anomalous occurrences. And it's very interesting that Native Americans talk about these points on the planet. Stonehenge itself in England, the ruins of Machu Picchu, all these places I'm telling you about, they're all part of a kind of grid that connects all these points. A grid that forms a sacred geometry pattern once again. And that's exactly why I mentioned that these places are famous for the appearance of lights, UFOs, and even supernatural entities. Not to mention, of course, the fact that people are able to reach altered states of consciousness in these places. Even I in Egypt, guys, I told you that there in Egypt, while I was there, I would leave my body without even needing to use any technique, without needing to do absolutely anything. I shared my experiences of astral projection in Egypt in this video here, which will be in the card in case you haven't watched it yet. Watch it, it's worth it, share my craziness, and these things don't just happen to me, you know? Many people who visit Egypt report similar things. In other words, these portals are real, some scholars of these phenomena. They believe that these immense stone structures form these portals as if these stones were placed at specific points on the planet. And they served as an antenna to amplify these fields that come from inside planet Earth. It's curious that in these places there's always one or more stones that support this claim. The Bermuda Triangle itself, guys, what portal is more powerful than that? People really disappear there and are never found again. Usually in these places where the phenomena are stronger, huge quartz deposits are found that generate piezoelectric energy. In Peru, for example, near Lake Titicaca, there is one of these portals, and it is the most perfect demonstration that this really happens. The local people call this place Hayu Marca. This place is literally a door in a rock that leads nowhere. The locals call this place the Gate of the Gods. And it's certainly not for nothing that this place has that name. In Egyptian temples, for example, there are hundreds of doors that lead nowhere. It's as if you had to leave your physical body behind before crossing that door. Because from that point on, meaning from the door onward, only your astral body can cross. Certainly, these stories about the portals that exist here on planet Earth are very intriguing. And it's that thing, right? What's on the other side? Well, we don't know for sure what's on the other side. We regular people, you know, civilians, we can't know what's on the other side. But the great powers of the world know very well what's on the other side, and they use these portals very frequently. That must be why they fight so much over these places, right? For control over these places, because after all, we've already realized that it's not just about controlling Earth, but about controlling what exists beyond.